Hi, it's Luke.
And this is Camille.
Okay, so for this video, we're going to walk you through some tools related to brainstorming. And if you remember, in our design thinking process, we've gone from empathize to define to ideate. This is kind of the juicy part where we can actually start exploring and brainstorming new ideas.
Yeah, and there's a lot known about do's and don'ts of ideation. So we're going to share with you some of the stuff, and this is really grounded in research. There's tons of data on this, so listen up. It can be really helpful. So the first thing when you sit down to brainstorm is to frame the brainstorming session with a specific pointed question that's grounded in insight. And one of my favorite question kickoffs is, how might we? And then you fill in the blank. So I might point back to some user research I've done and some customer journey mapping, and I might say, how might we alleviate wait times for drivers at the airport? How might we use technology to alleviate drive times at the airport? Would be even honing in even closer. So you can get as specific as you want. It's really great at this point to bring some of that data into the conversation to just bring everyone back to that place of user empathy and remind them of what's been learned out in the field, talking to real users in their native context. You can also bring in inspiration from other sources, such as competitive research. So what are some competitors in this space doing? Or from my favorite, analogous areas. So it could be that one place where things are really highly efficient is in an operating room. So what can I learn from that extreme environment? And I want to bring in as a facilitator to inspire people to come up with efficient ways of doing other things, like doing a pickup at the airport, if that's the problem that we're focusing on. You can apply this logic, by the way, to any problem at all that you're focusing on in a brainstorming session. And we're picking one example that from a prior video, which is improving wait times at LAX airport for rideshare customers and drivers. All right, so now you've framed the question in insight and you've shared some inspiration, and it's time to facilitate your brainstorming session. Always begin with a creative warm-up. Most of us are coming in pretty cold, we're in a different mode of thinking, and it's time to warm us up and get us feeling comfortable with each other. One of my favorite warm-up activities is we all stand in a circle and everybody very quickly just name the movie. If your life was a movie today, what movie would today have been for you? Another one might be, if you were a superhero today, which superhero would it be?
Hey, Camille, what's your superpower?
Oh, my superpower? Challenging people.
That's true.
So what's yours?
Mine, if I was a superhero today, it would be one that could probably walk through walls, being cooped up in a studio all day.
Oh yeah, Brad. Sounds good. All right, so we've done a warm up. Now we've just gotten to know each other a little bit, and it's very real time. So I understand where he's coming from, where I'm coming from. My energy's feeling a little lighter, and I'm ready to have fun. Okay, then I'd want to offer the rules of brainstorming as a framework, and I would put these up on the wall or give them as handouts so that everybody in the room remembers the rules of brainstorming. The first and most important rule is defer judgment. What does that mean?
Defer judgment is back to this piece around having an open mind and holding off on believing that our answer is right or that it's not feasible, that an idea is not feasible. So there are no wrong ideas with deferring judgment, right?
Yeah, right, absolutely. I also don't want to judge my own ideas. So we often get so in our heads we're scared to share our own ideas. Super important skill is letting go of that self-judgment, let the idea out. You never know what idea it might spark in somebody else.
And don't worry, there will be a time when we actually do look at feasibility. Otherwise, this doesn't work. But for now, we want to just the idea is get as many ideas out as possible.
Right, and that's another of the rules of brainstorming is go for quantity, not quality. When you get a massive quantity of ideas out there, you have a much higher opportunity of one of them being highly original and highly useful and one that nobody else would have thought of. So you need to kind of get a lot of the predictable ideas out before you start getting into the really interesting, innovative stuff. Third rule is go for wild ideas. So you want to go for ideas that are very far in the extremes, things that are really risky, things that you think to yourself, that'll never work, or they'll never give us the money for that. And you also want to think of ideas that that make you a little bit shaken up. So going for wild ideas helps you get to those original ideas. Third rule, build on each other's ideas. So if Luke were to share an idea with me, I would want to then take that as a seed. How can I let that inspire me and build something else? And then what if we did this? And then what if we did this? Okay, important for keeping the conversation on track is to focus on that key topic. So having it up on the board helps people keep coming back to it. Then another rule is one conversation at a time. And brainstorming is one of those activities that really feeds the nervous system in a very exciting and positive way. It gives you a little bit of a rush. So we can easily get into a mode where we're so excited, we begin to interrupt each other, and now we're having 27 different conversations at a time. This is why having a facilitator is super important. They can help bring back that focus. All right, lastly, make it visual. The more you can bring visual aids and even tactile experiences into this, the better. So drawing pictures if you're a drawer, using photographs, even just using different colors stimulates the brain in such a way that you're going to have more creative ideas. Okay. You know what one of my favorite tips that I want to talk about next is how to prevent groupthink. So I know I've been in brainstorming sessions where one person's really, really dominant and they say an idea and then suddenly the whole group starts only focusing on that idea and building on it. Maybe it's a person who has a lot of power, like, it's my boss and everybody else's boss, and so we really want to kind of follow that person. It's really death for the brainstorming process, right? Because we're not going to get diverse ideas, which is key. So what I have them do is everybody first writes down a bunch of ideas on their own without talking to each other at all. This is individual brainstorming. It might just only be 5 minutes. And then I have them share and begin to build on each other's ideas.
Yeah. And so when we share, do you want to talk a little bit about maybe what is the process for sharing?
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to talk about it?
Let's do it. So Post-its, right? So
yeah.
we these are every design thinking hobbyist or expert's friend are Post-it notes. A few things about Post-it notes. I'm guessing you can't quite read this. There's a couple of problems with this. We only want one idea per Post-it note, so use as many Post-it notes as you can. And you want to use a dark Sharpie, not a light Sharpie. So this
nice big thick one
is the best way to do it. Use one idea with a thick marker so everyone can see it. And give everyone an opportunity to not only put their Post-it note up on the board or the wall or the glass, but also as they do it, to take just a moment or two and explain the idea. This is not a monologue or soliloquy. It's just a phrase or two about the idea. And what that does is allows the opportunity to build on each other's ideas, right?
Cool. And as you're putting up your Post-its, you might start noticing that patterns are emerging for you. So maybe I'm noticing that there are a whole group of ideas related to best way, or we're building on the best way idea. I might want to cluster those together. Now, the cool thing about doing this in Post-its is later on, I might realize there's a different cluster. Like there are some of these ideas that are really, really expensive to pull off and other ones are really inexpensive. We don't necessarily have a preference at this point, or maybe we do, but we can cluster them and keep rearranging them this way.
You can't move flip charts, you can't move chalkboards, you can't move dry erase boards, but you can move Post-its.
Also, moving your body is one of the last tips I'll get. So when you're up and active and you're moving things, it helps stimulate the brain and get those creative juices flowing, keeps everyone awake, and it can be just a ton of fun. Great break in the workday. So have fun with the ideation stage.